Get ready for the real estate show that takes you across the barriers and into the danger zone. That Bitchin' Real Estate Podcast with your host, Tenacious T.
So, Joe, you came into my life last year through a series of, I'm going to call it desperate reaching out to friends on who can I talk to as a coach to help me put together this wild, crazy business that I have. And they said you need Yoda, and that would be Joe Buzzello. So when I came across you, and
I'm better looking than Yoda.
Yes.
For those of you that
He
are
is a
listening to
Jedi.
this.
Much taller,
He is
I'll tell you that right
now.
But I'm Italian, so
Right,
I'm not that tall,
right. But you got all the skin instead of just full on green, so it's just way better too.
Getting to know you over a course of several months and realizing, again, all of the different places you've had success in helping other people build multi-billion dollar, million-dollar businesses. You yourself have been in real estate. You're an author. I thought of something last night that I want to read real quick that encompasses who I think you are. Are you ready?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I picture a school ground, and there's this one little boy who quickly puts the blocks together. And he stands up, and he's so excited that he put the blocks together. But then he looks around, and he sees all the other kids still struggling with their blocks. So he says, hey, why don't we all come over here? Let's put our blocks together. I'm going to show you how, and we're going to make something big and beautiful. You're that kid on campus. That's how I see you. Listening and reading a few of your things, as it pertains to sales and real estate, there are 3 reasons why people fail. Tell me that little bit.
Yeah, and this came from I call it my chili dog epiphany. I'm having a chili dog at lunch with a great salesperson, a great sales trainer. We called him. He had several nicknames: the Machine, the Polish Assassin. His name was John Jamlikowski, and he was in Camarillo, California. He had an office for Pennsylvania Lifers, selling these dumb little $39 accident policies, and I was just made a trainer at age 19, the youngest trainer in Penn Life's history. And so everyone had to go out in the field for a day with John Jamlikowski. And so at lunch, I was trying to, and he didn't emote a lot. He just worked his ass off all day. We had that 5-minute, 7-minute lunch, choking down some chili dogs. And I said, I'm supposed to ask you how you get these crazy commission salespeople into business so quickly, so deeply into production, and you retain more of them than any other manager. And he said, well, it's like this. And he was literally wiping the chili off of his face when he delivered this, 45-second soundbite, which actually became the basis of my first book and a lot of the sales methodology we teach. He said, Buddy Boy. He called me Buddy Boy. Don't ask me why. He's very old
Buddy
school.
Boy.
By the way, he was a hero. He flew Phantom F-14s in Vietnam.
Wow.
And so
That's
he
awesome.
went about, he's an awesome guy, but not a highly emotional guy. Very, very level, didn't emote a lot. You had to pull it out of me. So he's wiping the chili, and he says, hey, Buddy Boy, it's like this. There's only 3 reasons why people fail in commission sales. Number 1, and so I'm like, I don't have anything to write with, and I'm choking down a chili dog, so I had to retain this. He said, number 1, people don't say the right things. He said, number 2, they don't say them in the right way. They don't hold themselves in the right way. And number 3, they don't say them to enough people. And to me, that became competencies, attitudes, and pipeline practices in today's parlance.
Yes, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
You have written a few books, to say the least. Drawing Circles is a big personal project of yours. That took 8 years to write.
Yeah, parts of 8 years.
Parts of 8 years to write.
I didn't go away and sit 8 years like
No.
Yoda in a cave, but parts of but it was quite a.
It was emotional. It was an
Yeah.
emotional one. And give us a brief summary. I'm going to touch on one of my favorite ones,
Okay.
favorite books, but give us a brief summary as to.
Well,
Drawing
Drawing Circles is a work of fiction. So I've written 2 nonfiction books and 1 fiction book. And I remember sitting with Jack Canfield in his house. He's the co-creator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul franchise, the most published nonfiction author of all time. I like to joke that Jack Canfield and I together have sold over 500 million books together. So Jack, I was writing the cap equation, almost done with the first draft, and I was part of a coaching program, and they really liked me. So my coach, Steve Harrison, said, hey, would you live in California? The coaching program was based in Philly, and I'd go there 2 times a year for roundtables and then get coached on the phone. And he said, hey, would you like to meet in Santa Barbara? Jack Canfield invites young authors, and we nominated your name. So I got this 2-day sit with 11 other authors in Jack's house, and he pulled me over the side and he said, so tell me about the cap equation. He became a big fan of it once he understood its simplicity. He loved stuff that's simple. He loves formulas. I said, well, I'm also working on this nonfiction, drawing circles. And he says, he goes, fiction writers and nonfiction writers, those are 2 different people. You don't write both. I said, well, and he told me I can't.
Yeah. And you say you can't to
I
Joe,
said,
and
yes,
he's going to do it anyway.
I said, I have he goes, no, there's no, those 2 writers don't exist in one person's head. And I said, well, I'm going to write it. So the gist of it is it's based on a true story. It's based on the largest real estate fraud Ponzi scheme ever perpetrated in Los Angeles. I had a front seat for the entire charade parade of criminals and saints and hooligans and all the shenanigans. And so,
and for the audience out there, Russell Shaw just joined us, and I see he perked up real quick when you started talking about that.
Real estate fraud. Hi, Russell.
Hi. Nice to see you.
The TV store. My wife and I love your TV commercials.
I love you and your wife already.
Yes.
You are a star in our house.
Excellent.
Oh, he's a star in all of our houses, trust me. But we'll get to him in a minute.
So this book was a culmination of me watching over actually 3 decades the lives of people that are affected by fraud. In this case, a real estate Ponzi scheme, both commercial and residential. We lost, myself, mom and dad, aunt and uncle, we lost our life savings, $470,000. The person who perpetrated the Ponzi scheme, and here's where the story becomes of interest to a lot of people. That person was my best friend at the time.
Oh.
He was the best man at my first wedding, my first marriage, which was a failed marriage, and he was my primary mentor. So over the course of when all this was revealed and played out over the course of 12 to 14 months, I, of course, learned, that my best friend had betrayed me, and I lost my business because my business was connected to his. My home went into foreclosure. I had to file bankruptcy. My father died of lung cancer, and my wife left me. Oh. And so that was all before my 27th birthday. And I haven't shared this often, but in October of that year, 1988, I contemplated suicide.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it. I said, well, maybe I'll rethink about it tomorrow. And I finished a box of wine because all good wine comes in a box.
Absolutely. Only the finest.
And after I got done with that box of wine, there was a handle of Jack that was about halfway done. I finished the rest of it. And so there was a contemplation of that. So that book was very important to me. But what I did in the book is I followed out the story. I actually stalked all the characters, including my best friend at the time, who served 4.5 years of a 6-year sentence in federal prison. And that's what the book is about. It's a very interesting story, and it won a couple of minor awards, and people say that is one of the best page-turning reads ever. So, yeah, it's a good book.
Drawing circles. And I do want to point out before I ask you about this next book, thank you for sharing your moment where you thought that you couldn't go on as well. Because, again, you're an extremely successful businessman and successful in life and love, and I'm so glad you didn't.
You know why I didn't do it?
No, tell me.
Because my mom would have killed me.
That is so true.
It's amazing what your moms will make you do or not make you do.
One of the things that I think is so relevant about what you're doing in leadership and mentorship is a lot of our professionals and entrepreneurs are turning rapidly to coaches, and they're just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna go with this guy, and I'm gonna go with this guy, and you actually have a full, we're going to call it equation and system. Let's use the book, The Cap Equation. And you have built a mentor leadership group around that, correct? Yeah. I want you to tell us a little bit about that, because your whole coaching style is the only thing that helped Tenacious T. She was a stubborn girl, and she didn't listen to anybody. And being in a room with a bunch of entrepreneurs and listening to someone as kind as you are and has the leadership skills you are is very important.
Well, thank you. everything to me, I'm pragmatic, and also I have OCD.
Yes.
And so formulas are very good for me to stay on target and on track. And I dropped into formula with that, the Polish assassin, that wonderful man John Jamlikowski taught that day over the chili dog. I distilled over weeks, months, and actually decades into the CAP equation. CAP standing for competencies, plus attitudes, mindsets that are very critical. Because we've all met commission salespeople, we've all probably managed or coached commission salespeople that are extremely competent. They have $1 million competencies, but they have a 5-cent brain, and they can't sustain or subsist in commission sales. And then there are people with fantastic mindsets and attitudes that just are not competent, and they fail as well. And then if they have those two ends of the equation together, they still need to see enough people and keep that pipeline full, get it full in the first place. And damn it, they need to keep it full, because you can't. A good friend of mine, a great sales trainer, Tony Iannarino, says you always must prospect, even if you die, even if you suffer a personal death. Keep prospecting for the next couple of weeks, because you may come back to life, and then you don't want an empty pipeline.
So there's only really one other person I've heard speak like you, and that is Mr. Shaw on the end. I like to say, if it's all about the money, you're on the wrong side.
Well, yeah, because the highest level of motivation is duty.
Yep.
That would be the number one. If you look at like a parent that helps their child, it's not a money motivation. If you look at Mother Teresa, how many deals did she do her last few years? You know what I mean? It's like, but there's this duty you want to see, and below that would be personal conviction.
Yeah.
Like, I believe this is the right thing to do. And then below that would be personal gain.
Yeah.
And at the bottom, the lowest level of motivation is money. This doesn't mean, I'm not suggesting that having a lot of money is bad. In fact, it's wonderful.
Yes.
And not having enough money is awful.
Yes.
But if the only motivation is money, you're
not
kind of,
gonna get
it's kind of like you could take, I don't know, Bill Gates. He's extraordinarily wealthy. Steve Jobs was wealthy. But they weren't just money motivated.
Correct.
There has to be that desire to help someone.
And I think that's where I see you being so different than any other coach that I've experienced or watched out there, is your whole motivation for creating, even writing your story, in my opinion, of the CAP equation, isn't money driven. You really enjoy teaching people.
Oh, I love this stuff. Yeah. I want to go back to what Russell said. So I'm going to pay you a compliment, but and you seem like a very humble guy, but and so I'm sure you'll take this and you'll say, "I'll cut it out." But I look at Russell Shaw and I listen to him, and he's saying, "Well, I teach and coach, but I don't necessarily have a formula." You don't need to have a formula.
No.
You do things so intuitively well that you're the type of person that I would want to hang out with. I would want to soak up the nuggets and the juice from. So we all have gifts, and people are going to
This is just the start of us hanging out.
Yes.
I can tell you right now.
Don't forget about little old me over here. I want to be involved.
I understand. Yeah, but I don't think you have to. And the last part of it is so spot on. What Russell said. It's we've interviewed a lot of commission salespeople over the years as a broker, designated broker, owner, agency owner, business owner. We've interviewed lots of people that want to get into sales because they heard you can make a lot of money. And when I ask people why they want to do this kind of work, and they say, well, I want to make a lot of money, I stop and I say, well, that's great. So tell me, if you did make a lot of money, what would you do with the money? And that's, oh, well, actually, I would want to, I'm in an apartment right now. I just got married. We plan to have kids. I need to buy my first house. So really, you'd come to work so that you could change your lifestyle. You could buy a home and start to raise a family. That's the reason you'd go out and do this tough work called commission sales. So Russell's a great coach intuitively, because he can get down, he can peel off those layers of the onion and ask the right questions. And that's all that coaching is getting to the root cause and fixing things. And it's all about asking the right questions and then intently, passionately listening and trying to follow the flow of the conversation. If you start asking questions, most people will open, because again, what's their favorite subject? Themselves.
Themselves and money. Absolutely.
You spend the time to really understand what their internal motivations are. And the myth of motivation is we always say, I'd love to better motivate my sales team. Well, you can't, because you're trying to do that externally, and it's motivation's not an external job, it's an internal job. The best that Russell or Peter or I can hope to do, or Kim, you can hope to do, is get to know someone well enough, connect with them well enough to understand their internal motivations, so you can inspire them. So you become an inspirational leader, not a motivational leader, because I don't think that exists. So you connect with someone, you invest in them, and there has to be some investment. So you connect and invest, and then trust grows, and all of a sudden you do have gravitas with them. You have influence, and the word influence in Webster's dictionary is defined as the ability to change someone's character, behavior, or development. And isn't that a wonderful thing? And isn't that what we're trying to do? If we're coaching someone formally or informally, that's there's another formula. That's the path.
Joe, what you have?
I'm sorry with the formulas.
No, that's okay. He did warn us.
There's not a
He's
test
formula
afterwards.
guy.
There's no quiz. As long as no quiz, we're good.
Tell us as a lot of real estate agents will be listening, please tell us your coaching series. How can they get in touch with you? You have a couple of different things that you're doing in your coaching and leadership line. Yeah,
absolutely. I have an online virtual platform called SellSource, SELSource.com. We have a SEL on demand program, and it's a 3 or 4 phase platform. We push out great new content for salespeople, entrepreneurs, and people in leadership roles, hence the acronym SEL. So we push out great new content every week. We have a fantastic training library that has literally hundreds of hours. It's all keyword searched and in categories. Again, because I have OCD, Russell.
Apparently it's working well for you,
Yes.
though.
To this point, before my wife kills me. And so that it's kind of like a Netflix for sales and entrepreneurial and leadership geeks. And then we do live hangs similar to this, where we invite pros on and we just talk. We just get to know them and get to know their stories. And we look to just suck all the wisdom and the nuggets out of them. And then also, if someone is a member of that platform, they have personal access to me for coaching check-ins. So it's by invitation only, sellsource.com. And also, we have a local program that you're very much aware of and have been part of, and that's Advance AZ. And Advance AZ is for local small business entrepreneurs, business owners, and we pull and arrange to have these very great diverse groups where no one in the group of 10 or 12 or 14 in the room, and 12 is about the good number for us. So we have several of these groups, but no one is in the same business sector or industry. So the perspective, the juice that comes out of this is phenomenal. We facilitate in a very structured, we call it organized chaos, and you've seen how it goes.
Yeah, and it's a round table mastermind of very successful people in all fields of business, which I think is so unusual and so different, because it's not a BNI. We're actually in there solving problems for each other. But since everyone's in a different field, you really get a different answer to your question.
Yeah.
So at the end, it's this melting pot of a beautiful idea that comes together, and you're like, ding, oh my gosh, I can leave here working on something that's relevant. I love that. Thank you so much for joining us. If you'd
my
like
pleasure.
to
Thanks for
hang
having me,
around and listen to the Oracle,
Yeah, I want
Russell
to.
Shaw, stay tuned. We'll say our goodbyes now. And then, as I like to say at the end of every episode, it is not what you go through, it is how you go through it. This is Tenacious T.
Joe Buzzello.
Pete Tocco.
Russell Shaw.
Out.